Good morning. We are tremendously honored to having the opportunity to introduce to you two gentlemen, two executive leaders coming together here today at the Bechtle Competence Days 2021 to speaking about their recently announced strategic partnership and what this partnership means to you, the customers of Bechtle. Welcome, Mr. Andy Jassy, the Chief Executive Officer of Amazon Web Services, and welcome Mr. Michael Guschelbauer, the Chief Operating Officer of Bechtle and your host to the Bechtle Competence Days. Welcome to both of you.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
So Andy, it's a pleasure for us having you in this conversation today and speak about some issues about our partnership and some strategic goals we both have, reaching the market and doing good things for our customers. So.
This is a fantastic opportunity having both of you with us here today to find out more about this partnership. Andy, Amazon Web Services is the largest cloud computing provider in the world. And Michael, Bechtle is the leading provider of system integration services with a headquarter in Germany, but a strong presence throughout Europe. The two of you just announced only in February that together you will even extend your partnership and your collaboration. Andy, what can you share with us about this partnership and why it is important?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, we've been in the market in AWS now for about 15 years. And from the very beginning, even before we started launching AWS services into the market, we always believed that our partner ecosystem was going to be very important and very strategic because customers, as they're making this transformation from on-premises to the cloud, want to do so with systems integrators and partners who they've worked with in the past and who can help them make that transformation thoughtfully and sequentially and safely. And so that has always been very strategic. We have thousands of systems integrator partners, and customers don't want just, they're not only looking for one size fits all. They're looking for partners who understand technology deeply, understand their companies, understand the cloud technology, and then how to operate safely in that environment. And if we look at our partnership and we look at what Bechtle has done over the last number of years with the thousands of companies they help in Europe and just their expertise that they've been building in the cloud, this partnership is very important, I think, to so many companies in Europe being able to make that transformation to the cloud, to save money, to be more cost effective, to be able to be more agile. And we couldn't be more excited about the partnership we're building together. We're going to be able to help lots and lots of companies together.
Thank you, Andy. And I know, Michael, this partnership means a lot to you and to Bechtle. Would you like to share some of your thoughts with us?
Yeah, so we are so proud and excited to taking this partnership to the next strategic level. And with you as the leader in cloud computing, the leading company in cloud computing, and as we established this recent strategic partnership, we set up a very close connection to both companies to bring this partnership to the next strategic level. And our ambition in this partnership is really big, because our ambition is to create really big impact for our joint customers. And Bechtle invests together with you, with AWS, massively in this partnership. And we want to educate, train, and certify hundreds of system engineers and consultants all across Bechtle's over 70 locations all over Germany, Austria, and Switzerland to help our customers doing this cloud transformation. And our formula for this partnership is for this successful partnership is very easy. We want to use the technology capacity of AWS as a leading company in cloud computing, and we want to combine it with our competencies in consulting and bringing these pieces together in front of our customers and create really big impact for the success of our customers. Because our Vision 2030 is we want to to have really big impact, to help creating success with our customers and for our customers.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing these thoughts about the partnership. And Andy, let us spend a moment talking about what's going on in the market right now. And what we are really seeing is right now this massive acceleration of cloud transformation across the board. We are seeing this in large enterprise, in small and medium-sized businesses, including the well-known German Mittelstand, so to say, and the public services organizations as well. And from your perspective, why are these companies and organizations moving to the cloud so quickly now?
Well, I think there are a few reasons why companies and public sector organizations are moving so quickly. In the beginning of AWS, when we first launched our services in 2006, in the early days, it was largely startups that were using the cloud. And they were building their businesses from a standing start, from scratch, on top of AWS. These are, most of the startups of the last 15 years. Companies like Pinterest and Airbnb and Slack and Domo and Stripe and companies like that. And people said, well, that's great that startups are building on top of the cloud. I don't know if you'll ever see enterprises or public sector organizations move. And what you see in the last 7 or 8 years is just this dramatic increase of enterprises and government organizations using the cloud in every imaginable vertical business segment. And you see it in financial services. You see companies like HSBC and Barclays and JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs, and in healthcare, Novartis and Bristol Myers Squibb and Merck and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, every imaginable vertical business segment. And now over 7,000 government agencies worldwide are using AWS. So you just see this massive transformation. And I think there are a few reasons why. I think the first conversation starter is always cost. For most companies, if you can turn the capital expense that you have to lay out for data centers and servers and instead only spend that as you consume it. So you turn it into a variable expense that's usually very attractive. And then that variable expense is lower in the cloud than it is for companies to do themselves. And that's because we have such large scale at this point that we pass on to customers in the form of lower prices that you can make your variable costs lower. So you turn capital expense to variable expense, a lower variable expense than you can do on your own. And then you get real elasticity in the cloud. So if you have to provision capacity, server capacity, infrastructure capacity, your company, you usually have to decide, do I provision just what I think I need and risk, if I'm wrong low, that I'm going to run out of capacity and have outages, or am I going to provision for the peak? And so almost every company provisions for the peak. But there's a reason they call it the peak. You rarely live at the peak for long. And so what the cloud allows you to do is you just provision what you need. If it turns out you need more, you pay, you seamlessly scale up and you pay for it. And when you're no longer at that peak, you just give it back to us and stop paying for it. Nobody thought the pandemic would end up being a peak, but companies that were using the cloud during the pandemic had a huge advantage because as demand was lower, given what was happening in the economy, they could give the capacity back to us and stop paying for it. So cost is almost always the conversation starter. But what is probably the number one reason for why enterprises and public sector organizations move to the cloud is agility and the speed with which they can innovate for their customers. And if you're building something on premises, it typically takes you 10 to 18 weeks to get servers to try something. And then if it turns out that you have something worth expanding, you got to wait a bunch of time for more servers. You got to build all the infrastructure software around it, the compute and the storage and the database and the machine learning and analytics. It just takes a long time. Whereas in the cloud, you can provision thousands of servers in minutes, and then you can choose from the up to 200 services we have in whatever combination you want and only pay for what you consume. So it lets you get from an idea to implementation in several orders of magnitude faster. So that is a big game changer. Then the last thing is that usually at most companies, their scarce resources tend to be software development engineers. And if you can have that scarce resource work on what really differentiates your product or mission as opposed to the undifferentiated heavy lifting of infrastructure, that's a huge advantage. And the cloud allows companies and government organizations to get all those benefits that they couldn't otherwise get before. So that's why I think you see so many organizations moving to the cloud so quickly.
Yeah, we are experiencing this move right now as a really powerful movement. And Michael, do you agree with these observations?
Yeah, I totally agree in these observations, because our observation through the last couple of months are that the main drivers of these cloud transformations are flexibility, agility, and a better way to collaborating with employees, partners, and customers. And these three pillars, from our point of view, are critical success factors for our customers to secure their business and to make much better operations than they have in the past. And we especially, we want to help to create success for our customers. And therefore, our partnership with AWS is essential for us to fulfill our Vision 2030, because we want to empower business. We want to empower business for our customers, and we want to deliver future-oriented IT services for our customers to create their success. Because we want to empower this business in the collaboration with you.
Andy, you have been so kind to mention that Amazon Web Services was founded in 2006. So it's already 15 years, right? And I assume that you have witnessed a great number of successful cloud transformations, but also the challenges that these companies and their leaders face throughout these digital transformation journeys. In your opinion, Andy, what are the biggest challenges for companies moving to the cloud?
It's a good question. And there are a few difference makers that we see in the companies that make those successful transformation versus those that just do a lot of talking about it. And interestingly, a lot of the keys aren't technical. Even though there's real important technical work to do, a lot of them are leadership driven. And so I would say that the very first thing that has to happen in a successful cloud transformation is that the senior leadership team has to really get conviction and alignment that they're going to make this shift, because it's a big shift for most companies from where they've been. And it's really easy, if you don't have the leadership team aligned, to think that you're going to make a change, but there's people somewhere in the organization that aren't really aligned and aren't really working on it. And so the first is you got to get that senior level alignment. And then along with that, the ones that make the successful transformations set aggressive top-down goals that force the organization to move faster than it organically otherwise would. And again, it's just because it's so easy for companies to feel like they're making progress, but they're really just dipping their toe in the water for several years. And then they think that they're actually doing something meaningful, and they realize they just haven't made that much needle-moving progress. And so I look at companies like Capital One is a good example, which is a financial services company. It's based here in the U.S., where their CEO decided top down they were going to reinvent their consumer digital banking platform on top of AWS in 18 months. And when you pick a goal that big and that aggressive, there's really no place for anybody who's not on board to hide. It's just going to happen too quickly. And so if you have the right auditing mechanisms to get the issues on the table every week, you realize pretty quickly who are the people who are going to be on board and who are the people who aren't going to be part of the transformation. But that type of goal forces the organization to get off of the dime and out of inertia and into actually real problem solving and action. And then once they achieve that goal, they then took their next big goal, which was to really move out of their data centers completely and move to AWS in the cloud. But it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't picked that aggressive top-down goal to force the organization to rally around it. Then I think that you got to make sure that you do training. And it's a lot of times you'll have senior level conversations where people get excited about the cloud, and then folks will come back to their companies and say, good news, here's the cloud. And there's nobody there who has any background. And while it's not really it's not crazy hard to use the cloud. People have found it quite liberating. It is different from what a lot of companies have been doing on premises for a while. And so making sure that you take the time to do the right training, and I think this is an area that we'll be able to partner together with Bechtle, which is training lots of people on having centers of excellence and people who are equipped to use the cloud successfully. And then I think the last piece I notice is a lot of times you can have companies who get paralyzed if they can't figure out how to move every last workload. And the reality is that when you do a deep portfolio analysis in most companies, which we often do with our partners, you find that you can easily classify applications into ones that are easy to move, medium hard to move, the ones that should go last because they have the most dependencies, the ones that could easily be lifted and shifted into the cloud, and the ones that need to be re-architected before they go into the cloud. And you can build a really thoughtful sequential migration plan over a few years. And what companies find is that there are so many applications they can rather easily move and get the benefits we just talked about in the cloud. And doing so not only gives them advantage in the short term, but it also helps inform how they're going to move the harder applications later. And so those, to me, are often some of the key differentiators between those that really make progress in the transformation and have success, and those that just do a lot of talking about it.
Thank you very much, Andy, for sharing these insights and observations about what makes a successful transformation to the cloud from all the examples that you have witnessed with Amazon Web Services over the time. And Andy, we certainly can't miss the opportunity, obviously, having you with us today to also speak about the trends and developments that are exciting you the most in the coming years, 5 to 10 years. So we all know that you'll move into this next exciting role, becoming the CEO of Amazon. So we are obviously very interested to learn what you see coming.
Gosh, that is a question I could spend 2 hours on, but I'll try to be.
Please go ahead.
I'll try to limit myself to just a few and be as succinct as I can be. But I mean, as much as the world of technology has changed the last 10 years, and if you look at what's happened in the last 10 years, it's been so dynamic. I think the next 10 years is going to make the last 10 years seem slow. There's just so much change and invention in front of us. But I think I'll start just with machine learning and AI. I think virtually every application over the next 10 years will be infused in some way with machine learning and AI. It's going to completely change what the customer experiences can be. I think that increasingly people are realizing when they talk about hybrid computing that there's the cloud and then there's kind of these on-premises pieces. And what people are realizing is that on-premises is not just on-premises data centers. In fact, I think as you get through the next 5 to 10 years, most of the on-premises nodes will not be data centers. They will be in our houses, in our offices, in oil fields, in agricultural fields. I mean, everywhere will be nodes in small stores. And so, the ability to have the right computing capabilities at the edge with the right intelligence and machine learning built into those nodes at the edge so they can take automated action and make predictions and change what actions are taken. Another really big change that's coming. And people are nibbling around the edges there today and doing all kinds of interesting things, but it's not as commonplace and not as powerful yet in how people are using as it will be in the next 5 to 10 years. I think robotics is another area that we're really excited about. I think that, we do a lot of it in our fulfillment centers to make things safer and more efficient. But I think that a lot of jobs that are done today by humans will be done by robotics applications. It doesn't mean that humans won't have a lot of jobs. We'll just have humans focus on more value-added jobs. But I think that will change a lot of applications. I think voice, when we had the ability to have apps on our phone that felt so revolutionary, and was revolutionary and so much more convenient over what we were doing before. But when you use good voice applications, it makes tapping your phone a few times seem so circa 2000. I think that what you're going to be able to do with just voice in your homes, in your offices, really everywhere, in your car, everywhere is going to change what those capabilities are. And I guess the last one I'll mention is just the hope and the potential for quantum computing. You know, like a lot of companies, or at least a few of them, we have a very significant investment there. And I think we're still realistically a few years away from it having a pervasive impact, but the potential of what the cost and speed with which you can do in computing with quantum computing is very high, and we're optimistic about it. And so those are a few of several, but as I mentioned, it could be part of a chapter 2 or 3 or 4 for us sometime in the future.
We will do this.
Okay.
We reconnect soon to talk in more depth, certainly. But for the moment, Michael, do you share Andy's excitement about these trends? And what will Bechtle's role be in that future?
Yeah, I totally share the trends that Andy mentioned before. So 5 to 10 years is a long period of time in our market and in these fast changing technology markets. So I'm sure that we are in the beginning of an incredible, interesting journey, and we have in front of us, and we are just at the start of this journey. Yeah. And so many exciting things will happen, and I totally agree to the point that you made about voice and voice in applications in business environment and also in home. Yeah, I totally agree to this point and to many other points too. Yeah. And so many exciting things will happen, and I'm sure that you, Andy, and your teams will excite us with many new innovations and new technologies. But what excites me the most is that we as Bechtle can bring all these innovations to our customers and bringing these pieces together to create the best values for our customers. And I'm absolutely sure we have incredibly interesting times in front of us, and we are in the right industry, in the middle of the fastest changing times in the next couple of years, and I'm very lucky to be in there and bring these innovations to our customers, and that's exactly our role that we have.
Yeah, and isn't that the most exciting thing overall, to bring the stuff to the customers and really see how it creates success with the joint customers. And thank you very much, Michael, for this comment, because that perfectly brings us back to the partnership. We are coming to the end with our conversation today, and Andy, as you said, we need to reconnect soon, hopefully, to talk about your future predictions in more depth. I think there is way more to discover, obviously, but for today, I just wanted to thank you both, and Andy, to you particularly, for taking the time early morning on your end, for taking the time to spend these 15 minutes with us today here at the Bechtle Competence Day. I'm sure your partnership will create big impact for the customers and for all of your organization. And and I hope we can reconnect soon and share some of the transformational success stories that the two of you will create with your teams. We are very much looking forward to that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. See you soon.
Thank you again for having us.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.